something that's always confused me is the notion that seemingly primarily men have, that having children gives them some kind of legacy. And there's two ways to interpret this, neither one I particularly find compelling. The first is a legacy of family, which the reason I don't find that compelling is how many people even know their great great grandparents? I only know my grandparents. I don't even know my great grandparents, let alone my great great grandparents. So I would argue that most people forget their family members after 3 generations tops. Like, you will be forgotten about. So this notion of a family name, of a legacy of that nature is just nonsense to me. You'll be forgotten about within 3 generations. There's no way around that. The only exception to that being if you somehow got famous. And then everyone knew you, and therefore your future generations knew you, so on and so forth, right? That's about the only exception to that, but that's not for 99% of you, so I don't understand that one. And the second one is genetic legacy, that your genes will continue on, but this is also not very compelling to me. Firstly, there's genetic mutations, so who knows how much of your exact genetics are even in your children in the first place. And secondly, it can be taken away in a matter of generations anyway, if not the next one. I mean, we see this all the time with miscegenation, otherwise known as race mixing. And it's just like your genes just get fucked. So there's really nothing you could do to stop that, unfortunately. So I don't really understand that take anyway. I think what it comes down to is both of these are ultimately just a cope for people to justify having kids, which I don't think anyone needs to necessarily justify having kids, because that's just a biological process. But people like to make themselves to be way more important than they are. And the reality is you're not important, okay? Your kids aren't important, your family line is not important, none of that is important. And I also feel that a lot of men put themselves through the ringer trying to adhere to that notion that somehow their family is important, somehow their genetics are important. They're not. I don't think any of that's important. Might be a downer, I guess, but I just look around. Like, how many people in the world are actually important? And I'm not talking about famous people. I'm not talking about celebrities. I'm not talking about any of that. Maybe I'm talking about inventors, depends on the invention, right? But most people are not important. Most people are replaceable. Most people will lead a life of obscurity. The only real way to leave a legacy of any nature is to produce some kind of work, whether that be an invention, although you might technically be forgotten once a superior invention is made, but I digress. Could be art. That can come in the form of writing, drawing, anything like that. Maybe then you'll be remembered, up until someone maybe burns all your stuff. Although, in the age of the internet, nothing's ever really deleted, so, it's somewhere. Maybe it's not in the public eye, but it's there. That's really the only ways I could think of establishing a real legacy. Whether it's significant or not is up for debate. But just this notion of family being important and having children being important and all this kind of stuff. I've never had that notion. That's never struck me as anything as impactful as others have had it, supposedly. And like I said, I think it mostly comes down to justification for having kids rather than any sort of deep, complex thinking about matters. I don't think that's what most people don't think. So yeah, I don't get it, is basically the summation of this topic. I don't get this notion of legacy. I don't get this notion of family lineage. You're going to be forgotten about within 3 generations tops, if not less. So, yeah, and in this day and age especially, it's like, do you think your kids are really going to have a family themselves? I mean, the family died with millennials, and the family is going to continue to die with Gen Z, and it's going to continue to die with Gen Alpha. Like, I don't really know what the future looks like. I think the only way to fix any of this is to go back. And by going back, I mean abandoning a lot of various technologies. I think that's the only way to do it, because I don't see how you could have the internet and have families at this point. I mean, there's other reasons to not there's other reasons why families are not existing, sure, but I think the internet is the death killer of death killer. What a weird term. Is the killer of many human things, from socialization in general, which that trickles down into family dynamics, relationship dynamics, so on and so forth. So yeah, I don't get it. I'll leave it there.